Good afternoon. I'm Vishnu Sivaji. I'm a product manager on G Suite, and I'm joined here by Alan Liang. We actually are product managers on Google Docs, so if you have any specific feature requests, feel free to grab us right after. We'll try to help you out. In the next hour, we're going to demonstrate ways in which G Suite apps, like Google Docs, empower you and your legal teams when you're working with legal scenarios. But before we get started, I want to know more about who exactly we're talking to today. So I'd like to know how many lawyers we have in the audience. OK. How about people who are not lawyers but work with legal documents? OK, more people. All right, how many people work with legal documents, are not lawyers but pretend to be lawyers? Oh, there's one person. All right. So we're going to start by playing a short clip. In this video, you're going to see special types of lawyers collaborated on a special type of legal document, and they're actually going to be using Google Docs for this process.
One of the most exciting things about Constitute is its relationship with Google Docs. Today at the National Constitution Center, we've convened a really unique group of constitutional drafters and others who have expertise in constitutional design.
I'm a lawyer from Kenya.
I'm from Ukraine. We are currently supporting the activities of the Constitution Commission.
I'm currently the Chief Technical Advisor for the Liberian constitution-making process.
And we've asked these participants to imagine an amendment on the topic of campaign finance. They'll use Constitute to identify what excerpts they find most interesting. They'll then export those excerpts directly into Google Docs. From there, they'll collaborate on that Google Doc. They'll mark up those documents, comment, edit, discuss those documents in the margin.
And so constitutions are supposed to be a popular exercise. They're supposed to be collaborative in their nature, in the way that they're made.
So all those in favor of Mugami's amendment as written, raise your hand. OK, so it passes.
So we're going to come back to this at the end, because I want to show you an example where an actual country redrafted their entire constitution using Google Docs. Now, you're probably not drafting constitutions on a daily basis. You are working, though, with legal documents that do have a pretty big impact on your company's future. Today, we're going to talk about three main things. First, we're going to highlight the powerful features in Google Docs that help you efficiently draft and polish legal documents, whether or not you're working by yourself or with a team. Next, Alan is going to talk about external collaboration. And that means collaborating with people outside your company, or perhaps negotiating. And we're going to show you how G Suite works great, even if these partners may not be on G Suite. And lastly, we want you to do all of this in a secure, confidential, and compliant environment. So we have a few special speakers from G Suite who are going to cover adoption, security, and compliance. How many of you have used Google Docs? OK, Google Docs to do work, like not in school. OK, Google Docs to do work and actually drafting legal documents. OK, so the numbers got smaller. That's fine. I want to show you that Docs is not just great for your day-to-day documents, like meeting notes, but is actually wonderful for something as complicated as a legal document. Now, legal documents are pretty interesting. They have very stringent requirements for formatting, structure, wording, and they often involve intense collaboration, your team or your company's legal team. Docs can save you a lot of time with this existing workflow. So here's a workflow that you probably go through. You start with drafting a legal document, where you might start from an existing template of some sort. After that, you're collaborating with your team, working with your legal team to get it to a state where you can actually share it outside your company. We're going to walk through a scenario. We are all going to be this company on the right, known as Chip. And we are working on a new partnership with a company known as RGB. And we're going to seal this partnership with this document, the Supplier Relations Agreement. Now, there's a particular format that we need to start with. In the past, you probably use Word templates that were emailed back and forth. You maybe had to figure out who to ping, find the right team site, and then that team site was probably down, and so you'd go and you'd cry a little bit, you'd come back, you'd repeat the process. It's a little painful. Last year in Google Docs, we launched custom templates. This means that templates that are relevant to you are now centralized in one place. And it's actually not a lot of work for your admin. Once the admin sets this up, a trusted user in your company can upload a new legal template, and within just a couple of moments, it's available to everyone in your company to find and use. In this example here, you'll see that the user is selecting a document to convert to a template, selecting a category, and boom, it's ready to use. So we have a great starting point, but we now need to add a lot of custom edits. There are two types of edits, formatting or the actual content. Let's start with formatting. Now, I heard this rumor going around, and the rumor said Docs does not have any formatting features. And we here like to debunk fake news. So what I'm going to walk through is just a small subset of the formatting features in Google Docs. And this is actually real time. This is how fast I work every day. And the point that I want to make is that over the past few years, we've been adding a lot of long-tail features to Google Docs. And the product is a cloud-native product, so it changes every time you use it. And so you may not know what we actually have in the product today. So after this session, go try out Google Docs, try doing what I'm doing here, and you'll see that we have pretty much everything that you need. If you don't, come talk to me. We'll get it in the product. In fact, we wanted to challenge ourselves. We took a US Supreme Court opinion because we thought it had pretty complicated formatting. And we said, let's try to recreate this in Google Docs. And actually, Alan took this on. And he was able to do this in, was it 15 minutes? 15 minutes without any errors, which is pretty amazing. But let's get back to our example with chip manufacturing. So we have a draft of our document. We've formatted it. And now we need to get feedback from others in our organization. So here you see that we've invited a few people from our organization. They're collaborating real time. They're editing several parts of the document at the same time. They're adding comments. They're adding comments to comments and creating threaded conversations. No one had to save a file and email the draft to someone else and say, hey, this is V1, now it's V2, now it's vFinal, now it's vFinal for real. vFinal, not really, let's do that again. Instead, it's all happening in the same document at the same time. Here's something you may not know. The Docs apps on desktop, iOS, and Android actually work offline. And when you make edits offline and you come back online, we will actually do a merge of the edits you did offline with the edits that were done by the other collaborators. It's pretty cool. You might be seeing something interesting here, which is we're actually assigning action items to specific people on your team. It turns out that people spend a lot of time at work tracking down colleagues to get work done, to just ask them to follow up on small tasks. In fact, research has shown that people spend up to 20% of their work week just doing this. That's about an entire day. So we've added intelligence to Google Docs. You'll notice here that as I type Ryan Weber to review overall proposal, or Alan Yang to check in with legal, Docs intelligently suggests action items on the side. We've detected the sentence, we've parsed it to understand what the AI is and who it needs to be assigned to. And with just one click, you can assign the action item. The impact of this, when you bring it to all products across G Suite, and you think about this impact multiplying with a large team, it really adds up. And the overall goal here is really just taking back time that you might spend on mundane, repetitive tasks, and instead giving you back this time and energy so that you can do the real creative and strategic work. So we now have a document that's in a pretty final state, and we're going to start sharing this with the external partner. Alan is going to walk you through the flow of what happens next.
Cool. Thanks, Vishnu. So our team is done with our pass at the document, and we are ready to engage our counterparts at RGB suppliers. So at this point, we'd love to see a quick show of hands. Who's a little wary of sharing documents externally? OK. right? Data privacy is certainly something to be careful of, but we are very happy to say that with Google Docs and with G Suite more broadly, you always have full control over who has access to a document and what they can do with that document. So let's take a look at some of these features. As you're probably aware, with Google Docs, when you're working internally, you can share a document with somebody by giving them only view-only or comment-only rights. And it turns out that you can do this when sharing externally as well. So if you aren't seeking somebody's comments or edits to a particular document, you can just give them view-only rights. Let's say, for example, that you did give somebody external edit rights to a document. Well, it turns out later you can always come back to the document and look at its revision history to see exactly who changed what. There are also some advanced things you can do when sharing a document with anybody, internal or external. And these kinds of settings include things like preventing them from adding further people to the document, preventing them from downloading the document, or even preventing them from copying from the document. Another useful feature for sharing is what we call expiring permissions. So this is found in the advanced settings of the share dialog, as you can see from this quick video here. And what this allows you to do is to give somebody permission to a document for only a certain amount of time. So if you don't want to give them permission forever, this is the easy way to do it. And the final sharing feature we wanted to bring up is Drive's data loss prevention feature called DLP. So with this, a domain admin can actually set predefined content detectors over the entire corpus of your company's documents. When one of these detectors detects what it was set up to find, it will actually enforce certain sharing rules on that document. So for example, you might set a rule that says if a document has the word confidential in it, or if a document has what looks like a credit card number in it, you can actually say that those documents cannot be shared externally, period. So this is a handy tool for admins to up the data security a little bit. So with all of these sharing features, we always strive to give you full control over exactly who has access to your documents and what they can do with it. So we have successfully shared our document externally now. And our collaborators at RGB are taking a pass over it. It seems like the video's not quite working, but let's imagine that our collaborators at RGB are taking a pass over this document. So in the past, what would have happened is that they would have added comments, they would have made some revisions to the document, and then they would have sent over a new version to you, sort of like a giant V2 with a lot of things for you to process. But it turns out that with Google Docs, all the same kinds of collaboration features you used internally are available for use externally as well. So imagine, for example, that some of our partners from RGB suppliers are working through this document. They are going through, they're leaving comments, which Vishnu pointed out earlier, but they can also make suggested changes, which should remind you of sort of the redlining capabilities that you might be familiar with. With all of these suggested changes, any changes from one given author will show up to you in a particular color, and the exact change that they're proposing will show up to you on the right-hand side near any comments. For each individual suggestion, you can choose to accept or reject it in real time, or you can come back later to a document and do a full pass over all suggestions. Coming soon is a new feature which will allow you to accept or reject all the changes on a document at once. And you'll also have the ability to preview the document as if all changes were either accepted or rejected. So these are improvements on the traditional redlining experience that we think will help you become even more efficient when dealing with documents like this. We have some happy lawyers in the audience. Great. So far, we've been talking just about collaborating between G Suite users, which is a great experience that we care very much about. But we know realistically that a lot of times your legal teams might be collaborating with people who are still using Word. And we are very happy to tell you here today that that's completely fine. We don't need to hold it against them. So on the left here, you see a document by our friends over at RGB Suppliers. They're still using Word. And you'll notice that this document looks like a legal contract, right? It has some particular formatting about it. It looks like it came from an RGB template because it has that blue header across the top. And there are even a couple comments in here already for us. So our counterparts at RGB save this file and email it over to us. And we open this file in Google Docs, and we get what we see on the right here. So you'll notice a few things. First is that the formatting and content are preserved. You even get the little blue bar across the top. And you'll notice that the comments originally in Word show up as native Google Docs comments. So you can do the threaded conversations and the assigned action items that Vishnu was talking about earlier. And why do we invest in this? We invest in this because we know that a lot of our users are still interacting with people who are on Office. And so we want to make file conversion fidelity something that's a very high quality feature within Google Docs. Great. So we've settled on the contents and the formatting of a document, and now we want to get signatures from both parties on this particular legal contract. It turns out that the G Suite ecosystem has a lot of partners who are building out high-quality integrations between parts of G Suite and their own products. And this is great for us, because for our electronic signature needs, for example, we might choose to use DocuSign. DocuSign is a solution that works. It has over 100 million users in 188 countries. And moreover, it's a recommended for G Suite partner. So all recommended partners have to go through certain security and integration standards reviews. And this is because we know that when dealing with a third-party ecosystem, data security becomes even more important. So DocuSign has a number of integrations with different parts of G Suite already, but we are excited to announce that they're building even more. So towards the end of last year, they released their new Android add-on, so you can sign from your Android device. And here at Next, we are very excited to pre-announce their new Docs add-on, which is what you see in the sidebar here. With this new Docs add-on, users will be able to finish editing a file in Google Docs, and then they will be able to begin the DocuSign signature experience via this add-on. This is what we mean by making workflows more efficient for our users. Moreover, this new Docs add-on will be making an appearance in another new feature that we're pre-announcing here at Next called template integrations. A template integration is a pairing of a specific template with a specific add-on. So why might this be useful for legal use cases, you say? So let's say, for example, your company has a number of standardized legal contracts that you want all your employees to have access to. Moreover, let's assume that your company uses DocuSign for its electronic signature needs. If you were to take those legal contracts and upload them to your template gallery that Vishnu described earlier, and if you paired them with the DocuSign add-on, all of a sudden, all of your employees who are creating documents from those templates will know exactly the right electronic signature tool to use, and they will have it at their fingertips when they're ready. So we're very excited about this partnership with DocuSign and with other partners that could help with your legal use cases. We also wanted to point out that it is possible for you to create your own extensions to G Suite via AppScript. If you want some ideas on different tools to build out using AppScript, feel free to visit our public webpage known as the G Suite Transformation Gallery. But for example, you might consider building a Docs add-on that lets you paste standardized clauses of legal contracts into Docs. Or you could build a tool with AppScript that helps you keep track of exactly who has signed an NDA. A third integration that we wanted to bring up is what we're calling Docs storage integrations. Some of you may have heard the announcement last year, but with these new Docs storage integrations, we're allowing users to use the Google Docs editors, so Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides, with the third-party storage solution of choice. And so I'm curious at this point, who here uses a third-party storage solution that's not Google Drive? Cool, so great, some people in the audience. So this feature will hopefully be very useful for you. So today, to help us see what the value of this could be for your legal teams, we're very excited to have Raja Balakrishnan from the first storage integration partner we announced, Box. Thanks, Raja.
Thank you, Hello, everyone. I'm Raja Balakrishnan. I'm a product manager at Box, and I'm working with our counterparts at Google to tightly integrate Box and Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. So I'm very excited to be here in front of you to share with you on what we're doing about the integration, and also to give you some insights on how Box and Google together can help you address your legal use cases. Before I kind of jump into that, I kind of want to share with you what Box does well, right, and how this integration will benefit you. So at a very high level, Box lets you store your content, secure your content, share it, and govern it all in one place, right? So that is what primarily Box does. But we've spent the last 10 years building services that enable you, services like compliance services, reliability, security, and so on and so forth. So you could manage all your content in one place, but at scale, right? You can manage all that content at scale. What we're really working on with the Google team here is to kind of make sure that you get all the benefits of the Google collaboration suites, co-authoring, editing, and a lot of stuff that we talked about here in this conference, but at the same time, maintain a centralized source of your truth, so all those changes can be saved back directly to Box in real time, right? So what this means is you could be within Box if you're a Box user, but you can still create documents, slides, and sheets. You could open them, you could collaborate and share all that content without ever having to leave the Box, right? Your content still lives in Box, but you get all the collaboration benefits of Google Doc Sheets and slides. So that's what we are working on this year. Before I kind of jump into some of the areas that Box and Google can help you, specifically around legal use cases, we strongly believe that the technologies that are available to busy legal professionals today are challenging, right? They're challenging to use. There are a few examples here. I'll just highlight 3 of those. It's just not easy for busy professionals, legal professionals, to access content on the go, right? This could be mobile access. This could be remote access. It's just not easy to access content. Second, securely sharing and receiving content is just not easy. It's tedious, in fact. And I'll give you one example. Some of the lawyers in the room might associate with this. I've observed that some legal professionals still put their case material on CDs and ship it out to their clients, right? So that kind of stuff still happens. And technologies like FTP, extranet, all these legacy technologies, they are definitely not easy to use. They're not necessarily secure, and in many cases, they're not compliant, right? So these are some of the challenges that we think you or the teams that you serve face. So let me give you a few examples of how Box and Google together can help you address these. In the interest of time, I'll just pick one use case, right? I'm going to pick litigation case management. But just like any other collaboration use case, you could imagine that this will require collaboration with multiple parties. And these parties could be collaborators within the team. These could be your attorneys. These could be your paralegal folks, and so on and so forth. This could also be your clients. And in some cases, occasionally, this could be your opposing counsel with whom you'd have to collaborate on content, right? So this is kind of the use case. And let me quickly tell you how Box and Google can help you address these use cases. First of all, Box provides a very highly organized folder structure. So what that means, why is that relevant to you? Your legal teams can bring all their content into one centralized location, right? This could be all case material relevant to a single client, or it could be case material across the cases that your teams handle, right? In many cases, we have noticed that this can help you completely replace FTP servers and other technologies that are used for this purpose. The second area that we can jointly help you is we offer a great permissions model on documents and folders. In fact, we offer 7 levels of permissions, starting from preview-only rights all the way up to editor rights on documents. So what this really means is, as a legal team, when you're thinking about collaboration, you could define who has view-only access to the document or the case matter that you're working on, but not edit rights, right? This is very important in a collaboration use case. And third, remember we talked about the shipping CD use case. We can really help there because Box and Google together can help you share content, securely share content, not just with a few people, not just with people in the room, but people across geographically distributed locations. This could be clients in many cases. And the reason this is relevant is you guys deal with complicated remote access technologies. They're just hard to set up, right? We heard about VPNs, setting up VPNs in the keynote presentation. It's just really hard to do that, and you don't have to do that, right? Box and Google together can help you address those use cases. You could share, you could collaborate content very easily. But with all these capabilities, these native content management capabilities of Box, and the collaboration capabilities that we're offering with Google, what you could do is you could change the behavior of the teams that you're working with. I'll give you one example. Sending out attachments in emails is not the way to do it, right? And specifically in your use case, you'd have to deal with multiple versions of the same document, right? Staying on top of it with sharing it over email is just not easy. With Box and Google together, that's going to be extremely easy for you, especially your legal teams, to stay on top of the case matter, even though there are multiple versions that you'll have to deal with. And finally, in addition to all the native content management capabilities I described and the integration that we're doing with Google, we also offer integrations with document signing services like DocuSign. Just like Google integration, we at Box also offer an integration. So that means that you have a lot of choice to choose the right integration for your specific use case. And for your specific legal use cases, attorneys and paralegals and clients, it's easier and faster for them to sign those documents. So in closing, in summary, I just want to leave you with the thought that we at Box are working very closely and tightly with our partners at Google so that you could leverage the collaboration capabilities of Google, the content management capabilities of Box, and you can address the tough legal use cases and do all the strategic work that you need to do. If you have any questions, I'll stick around here. You could also drop us an email at sales@box.com if you want to explore further. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Raja. Great. So where are we now? We've spoken a little bit about the features of Docs, about formatting legal documents, about sharing, and about the ecosystem. But there are still some very, very important topics keeping us from happy hour. And they are things like security and compliance. And we know these are very big deals, especially in the legal context. So in order to do a bit of a deep dive into some of these topics, we are very excited to have a few of our colleagues here today. First off, we have Mike Chasan, who is product counsel at G Suite, who will talk a little bit about what it's like working with Google Docs and with Chromebooks as a lawyer at Google. Thanks, Mike. Oh, OK.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Chasan, and I am product counsel for Google Docs, so I get to spend a lot of time with these guys. Yeah, so when I started working at Google 6+ years ago, I went through my first day of Noogler orientation. I learned all about the Google tools and applications, and it was all great. I learned all about Google Docs. They had these interactive demos. It was very exciting. And then on my second day, I walked into the legal offices, and they said, yeah, Google Docs is great for internal use, but you're a lawyer. You need to put Word on your computer. Do it now. It's the first thing. So that's what things were like at the very beginning. About 4 years ago, I switched to using Docs completely for my practice and gave up Word entirely. I might say that I did it because I like these guys and the team and I want to support them. The honest truth is the new Pixel Chromebook came out and I really wanted one. And the only way I could get one was if I committed to give up my MacBook and my copy of Word. So I got the new fancy computer. It does the Konami code nights blinking, and I really like that. And so I just worked around my issues with Docs and learned to love it. So I just wanted to give you a few practice tips that I've developed over the years to help you make that transition from using a mixed mode Word and Docs environment to working completely in Docs. So the first point is collaboration is king. The most compelling use of Google Docs is to collaborate, to get feedback, to leave action items for your teammates, to drop in questions and notes. So even if you are working in a Word document, and even if you are going to keep it in a Word document, the first thing I do when I get a Word document is import it into Docs and share it with my team. That way I can consolidate all that feedback, see what's going on, and then proceed how I'm going to proceed with the document. Workflows are also really easy in Docs. In advance of Next, I had a lot of emails to review and approve, a lot of blog posts to review and approve. It's really easy in Docs to drop a table, a list of everyone that needs to approve a document at the top of the file, and then everyone can look at the same document at the same time. They can drop their names into it when they've approved it and sign off. You don't have to worry about which version you've looked at. And you can even look at revision history to see if the document has changed since you were last in it. The other thing to remember is not everything is collaborative. Engineers love to collaborate. Lawyers don't like to collaborate as well or aren't as good at it. When working with an external party, sometimes I find it helpful to make internal copies and external copies of the same document. That way, my internal team can discuss the document freely, put in comments, edits in the internal version. I can review that, consolidate, come with a final position, and bring that into an external copy that I share with our partner. And then when I get comments back from the partner, I could do the same thing in reverse, bring their comments back for internal discussion. The permission model that Vishnu and Alan talked about is very helpful to make sure that partners that only have view can't see revision history, but sometimes when you give them edit access, it's important to remember that all editors can see revision history. So if you make a new copy of a document, it's a way of resetting revision history and making sure that the new document doesn't contain any of the past comments and suggestions. And lastly, exporting to other file formats is very easy. So if you do need to send an attachment to somebody that cannot work or will not work in Google Docs, it's very easy. It's one click away to email out a Word version or a PDF version of the document. So I hope those were some helpful tips that can help you guys transition into using Docs more in your legal practices.
Cool. Thanks very much, Mike. So up next, we'd like to welcome Mark Crandall, who's head of Google Compliance for Google Cloud, who will be talking about some of the topics that might be on your mind as you consider adopting a cloud-based productivity solution. Mark.
Hi, folks. Thanks for listening. So just because we talk about collaboration in the cloud with regards to legal professionals, lawyers, contract administrators, doesn't necessarily mean that you can or should put confidential data in the cloud. If you're a lawyer representing a company that works with information in a regulated market, then of course you need to conduct an assessment of that in the first place. There's a detailed session on this tomorrow, but I did want to cover some very high-level points because we actually do have millions of customers that are using our services, and they are doing it dealing with regulated information. So the first thing that I want to talk about is conducting a compliance assessment. Now, I've been at Google for a little more than 10 years, particularly with G Suite, from the very beginning. And we do not have the legal experience or the compliance experience of all of our customers around the world. We have 190 so odd countries, and let's say we've got 5 verticals in each country: financial services, personal data, healthcare, manufacturing, investing. That's what, tens of thousands, hundreds, millions of different combinations. So our customers are the experts in their own compliance obligations and their own compliance requirements. However, we have been doing this very long, and we've worked with a lot of regulatory authorities in helping to create a product that can be adopted by as many customers as possible worldwide in light of their regulatory compliance obligations. So I would submit that when you're reviewing Google, and I am bringing these questions up because we've addressed these many, many times over the years and have good answers. You want to consider, for example, what are the security capabilities of Google with respect to what you're doing on site? You've probably seen some of our security sessions. We've got hundreds of security engineers. But I'd submit that in most cases, our security capabilities will far exceed that of most of our customers. You have to think about who owns the data that you put into the cloud. With G Suite and with Google, your data remains yours. You place it into our systems. That does not change anything. We also provide restrictions on how data is used. We provide a data processing amendment which obligates us not to use the data for ads. No ads are seen. No data is used for ads. We don't use the data for any other purpose than to provide the services. That's particularly important in the areas of, for example, European personal data protection, or when it comes to the United States, when it comes to FERPA, which is the protection of student records or directory information. So HIPAA, with regards to placing PHI into our system. So data use restrictions. We obligate ourselves to provide you data incident notification which is very important in lots of regulated markets, and also for the General Data Protection Regulation, which is going to be coming up in Europe next year, the GDPR. We provide an affirmation that once you delete data, it will be purged from our system. It will be gone, right? It doesn't just stick around. I don't know how many people using on-prem software wipe their hard drives every time they delete a file or a document. Data portability, we provide assurances that you can take your data and go home if you want to leave G Suite. You also want to consider what type of data you're storing in the system, right? As I mentioned, we have millions of customers that store all types of data, but you want to make that as part of your assessment. And then the last thing I want to talk about with regards to compliance assessment is, how do you know that I'm not lying to you about everything I say we do? How do you know? I could just be telling you anything you want to hear. The way you know this is because we undergo third-party audits of our security and data protection capabilities. We invite third-party auditors to come in and examine our processes against more than 100 controls to help ensure that what we do, what we say we do, is actually what we do. So with respect to that, we provide our customers with a SOC audit report. You see I mentioned SOC 2 and SOC 3, where auditors, particularly with the SOC 2 report, create a very detailed, highly confidential assessment of our data protection capabilities, which can be reviewed by your chief security officer, chief risk officer, chief information officer, to be able to determine whether our security capabilities align with your own requirements. And I would submit that I think that they might. But the interesting thing about SOC 2 is, while it's a very detailed assessment, and it's 200 or 300 pages long, to distinguish that from ISO certification, you'll see here three nice little ISO badges. ISO 27001, which is a security standard. ISO 27017, which is a brand new cloud security standard specific to cloud. And then ISO 27018, which is a new standard with relation to data protection, specifically privacy. So we provide SOC 2 type audits, but we also have achieved ISO certification with respect to these three standards, 27001, 17, and 18. It means we've attained a certain level of compliance that was dictated not by us, not by the industry, but by the International Organization for Standardizations, a global body that designs these certifications. The reason why we use a global body is because it helps ensure that as many customers as possible in as many markets as possible can leverage these third-party audits and certifications. And finally, we have industry-specific and region-specific regulatory frameworks as well. You heard me mention HIPAA with regards to United States healthcare information, PHI. We can accept HIPAA information into G Suite, into some of our services. We are also FedRAMP certified, which is very difficult to obtain, which allows US government agencies to store data, FedRAMP moderate data, into our system. And then finally, for our many, many customers in Europe, or those that have, or multinationals that have end users in Europe, we offer data export mechanisms, things like EU model contract clauses, which we've offered for customers for years. Incidentally, who here heard about the invalidation of safe harbor? Okay. That had to do with whether Europeans were allowed to export personal data from Europe to the rest of the world. Safe harbor was invalidated, but model clauses was an alternative to that, which we offered for years before this happened. Why? Because we know that model clauses are important. Data export is critical to our customers in Europe, and so we've been offering it since then. And we also implement Privacy Shield, participate in Privacy Shield as another way to allow data to be exported from Europe. There are other frameworks in the UK that we can talk about as well, or other parts of the world, but just a synopsis. And the last thing I want to mention is, I talked about all the great things we do. I talked about the third-party audits and certifications that you can review to make sure that we're not lying to you. But then we also need to put it in writing, right? So our data processing amendment is where you can find the meat of a lot of this stuff. We obligate ourselves to restrict how we process your data. This is where we promise that we'll actually do these third-party audits and certifications. We have to promise it in writing, otherwise, again, it won't mean anything. We promise to delete your data when you want us to. We promise to provide you notification, I hope it doesn't happen, but of data incidents, because this is required for many regulatory frameworks. I hope it never happens, but if there's a data incident with your cloud provider, you need to know about it, because you may need to fulfill your own regulatory obligations. So we provide that commitment. We tell you about any vendors we might use for processing. We don't use very many third-party vendors because we are Google, but for technical support or customer support we may. And we also disclose all of our subsidiaries that are involved with processing data, right? Because we have Googles all over the world. We outline our security measures as well. So this is the combination. A compliance assessment where you can partner with us, your compliance assessment with our expertise in the cloud, utilizing our third-party auditing tools to verify what we do, and then finally, the contractual obligations that we provide to you to put in writing what we say we're going to do. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mark. And our final guest is Ivan Passos, Product Manager at Google Vault, which is a very useful tool for dealing with litigation holds. So, Ivan?
Thanks, Ella. So basically what Google Vault does is it provides you the ability to implement e-discovery and compliance into G Suite. So if you are looking at implementing legal documents and using documents for your legal processes, they will be covered by Google Vault, and they will have full compliance checks, and also the ability to generate those documents in a legal case or for any internal investigations. What Google Vault does is basically through retention policies, you're able to define exactly when your data should be kept and for how long, and when your data should be gone. And this is done automatically. Your IT managers will be able to set up those retention policies. They are done for each specific data type. You can do that for Gmail, for Docs, for groups, for the different applications in G Suite. And you can set multiple types of policies, of requirements and criteria. You can say that it should be kept indefinitely for the legal team or for 3 years for HR, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have a lot of granularity there. And once you've set up your proper policies for retention and data lifecycle management, you can then search for data as needed. You can search for documents that are relevant for a specific investigation or case. And once you've coded that data and narrow it down to the specific data set you're looking for, you can then export that data either to provide to external counsel or to move it on to another investigation and discovery tool or to use it internally. Google Vault is part of G Suite. It's actually included in G Suite Business and G Suite Enterprise. And this complements what Alan and Vishnu were talking about when you have document functionality for your legal teams, for producing contracts and et cetera. Google Vault provides you full coverage for e-discovery and compliance for G Suite as a whole. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks very much to all of our guest speakers. So let's recap a little bit about what we've seen today. At the beginning, we first talked about a lot of the features that Google Docs has to help you create very well-formatted and powerful legal documents. We then talked a little bit about what it's like to collaborate on Google Docs, including touching upon some features that you might already be used to, things like commenting or suggested changes, which is an improvement upon redlining. Here, we also talked about various sharing controls you have, and we talked about file conversion fidelity, which is something we pay a lot of attention to. And we also touched upon the G Suite ecosystem, which offers a lot of partner tools which could help you accomplish your legal needs. And then finally, we talked about the very important issues of adoption, of security, and of compliance. And we had our 3 guest speakers who brought some more color onto these topics in the very black and white world of legal documents. So we wanted to conclude by showing you this video about what Iceland did with Google Docs.
So I'm Þorvaldur Gylfason, professor of economics at the University of Iceland. I was one of the 25 members of the Constitutional Assembly that drafted a post-crash constitution for Iceland. And we were delighted to use Google Docs in order to make our work easier. On many, many occasions, we saved time and energy by doing the drafting together, not necessarily sitting in the same room, we could be in different places, using Google Docs. I'm convinced that our Constitution is a better document than it would have been without these technological advantages.
So yes, a country has actually written their constitution with Google Docs. So in conclusion, we just wanted to say that we hope you'll go back to your companies and ask your legal teams and all your super users of Word to give Google Docs a shot, because we think they'll be very surprised by just how much they're capable of. Thank you very much.